the chapter The Enemy, which is written by Paul S. Buck. Now this story goes on in between the World War II, that is war between America and Japan. Now initially America was not involved in the World War, but the attack of Japan on Pearl Harbor draws out America to go to war against Japan. Now the story goes in this way. Now here the main character is Dr. Sadao Hoki. Now Sadao Hoki is a doctor as well as a scientist. Now he has built a technique to render wounds completely filled up and without any marks. Now Dr. Sadao Hoki had to go with the soldiers to the war, but he was initially kept in Japan for his findings and the recent techniques to render wounds completely clean, and also the general needed an operation. Now here there is a character sketch of Dr. Sadao Hoki's father. Dr. Sadao Hoki's father was a very traditional man. He never joked and he was always serious about his life. His prime goal was Sadao's education. So he sent him to America. Now Dr. Sadao Hoki met Hannah, his wife, in America in Professor Harley's house. Now the meeting was an accident because Hannah was a new student in America and Sadao had gone only to visit Professor Harley on his invitation. Now after they completed their studies, they had to come to Japan. They had to take permission from Sadao's father to marry, because he would not grant for marriage if the girl was not of their own country and their own culture. They had been living a happy life. Now one morning, when the house that Sadao lived is his parents' house, that is descended from his father. Now it was located in the coastline of Japan. In the coastline surrounded by small islands. Now Sadao's father said that these islands will be the stepping of the future of Japan. Now one morning when Sadao was in his garden, he had a moss garden. The moss garden of Sadao's father was one of the finest in the country. It was built by the old gardener that is in his house before his birth. Now when he was in garden, he saw a speck with his wife. Now they ran towards him because they thought that it was a fisherman that was washed to the shore, and they thought he would have been wounded because of the spiked rocks in the coastline. But when they reached, they saw that it was not a fisherman but a war prisoner. They initially could not know who he was, but after a hat fell off of his head, they saw golden hair, which was inhabitants of which Japan inhabitants did not have, and in his cap it was written US Navy. Now after checking him, he saw that he had a bullet wound that has been opened up. With the bullet wound was few days before. Now they were confirmed that it was a prisoner of the war, so they could not decide what to do with him. As Hannah and Sadao were both doctors, they could have saved his life, but they were caught between the dilemma of either carrying out the national duty of throwing the prisoner into the sea or carrying out the doctor's duty to render his wounds and make him alive again. Now both decided to throw him in the sea, but neither of them could not move. Now Hannah finally decided to take him to the house and operate on him. Now Sadao was initially frightened because the serpent was told to the police, but seeing Hannah, he also agreed and took the prisoner to the house. Now the prisoners were initially frightened. They were not happy of their master bringing the prisoner to go. Now they both decided to operate. When Dr. Sadao turned upside down the prisoner, he saw the wound. He asked Hannah to give him anesthesia, but Hannah, who had never seen an operation in her lifetime, began to vomit. Now Sadao was very angry. He was restless. He was restless because he could not go to Hannah to console her, and he was also operating on his enemy. Now Hannah came back. Interestingly, Hannah came back and gave anesthesia to the prisoner. Now Hannah was thinking whether the stories of operation and the beatings that they gave to the war prisoners, she thought of General Takima. Now General Takima has a news of oppressing and beating of his wife, but later the news has been cleared because he was a hero of the war. Now she thought it was completely true after seeing a red star in the neck of the prisoner. Now after a few hours, Sadao completely operated him, and the operation was successful, and the man began to live. Now Hannah had asked one of her servants named Umi. Now Umi was there as a nurse to take care of the children of Sadao and Hannah. But Umi disagreed to wash the prisoner. Now Hannah was very angry upon her, but she could not tell her a thing because she feared if she would tell or scold the servants, they would inform that a prisoner is in their house to the police. So she came with a bowl of warm water and washed the prisoner by her own. Now the prisoner began to live in their house despite all the beatings and the bullet wound that he rendered upon him. Now after a few days of living in here, the servants left. After 7 days, the prisoner was in the house, the servant left. And one day, the prisoner saw Hannah coming to him. He asked something and Hannah replied in English. Now he was amazed and asked how he knows English. Now she said that she lived in America a long time ago. Now the prisoner told Hannah that his name was Tom. Now Hannah did ask the name, but the prisoner initially told her that his name was Tom. Now he was both aggressive and repulsive. He told Hannah that if everyone in Japan were like her, then there would be no war. Now Hannah was not happy with his statement, but she did not tell anything. Now one day, after the servants left their home, a royal messenger came to the home of Sadao to inform about the operation of pancreas on the general. Now, Hannah, after seeing the royal messenger in his uniform, she was very frightened. She was both exhausted from the work she was not habituated with after the servants left their house, and after all, she was also frightened. She reached to Sadao in the garden. The royal messenger simply followed her and told Sadao that their general needed an operation. Now, Hannah asked her, "Is it all?" And the messenger replied, "Is it not enough?" Now she apologized for her stupid words. After the messenger left, Hannah was left to cry. Now Sadao saw that it was the time to get rid of the prisoner because it is not good enough for him and his family to accompany with the pressure that they have to live in fear of the police and the army because they have given shelter to a prisoner of war. The general was very surprised at the words of Sadao when he said him that he has given shelter to an army prisoner. Now the general was also understanding. He said that it is the duty of the doctor to save a life, and thus Sadao could not help himself to save the prisoner. Now he also said that Sadao was a good man as he told the truth to him. He also said that he only gave his understanding upon Sadao because every other doctor of Japan has been trained by the German, and Sadao was the only one who has been trained in America. Now the Germans say that operation is successful if the patient has also died. But Sadav has a wrong thinking, the right thinking. He said that the purity of the knife and every patient's life is worthful. Now the general said that he would present royal assassins to murder the prisoner, and Sadav agreed with him. Now Sadav saw that it was a great help for him for the assassins. Now the assassins are the people hired by a person to kill someone. Now Sadav understood that whether the general had to borrow assassins because it was necessary for a people of higher category to have assassins with him for royal purposes. The general promised Sadav to give assassins to his house and also remove the body from his house. For 3 days of pressure, for 3 days, Sadav eagerly waited for the assassins to come, but they never came. Now, Sadav saw that it is not worthful for him to handle the pressure. His family and he himself was very much pressurized, and they could not sleep for many days after the prisoner is in their home. He himself decided to get rid of the prisoner. So he gave Tom a small boat, some food, some water to drink, and some clothes. He also gave him a torch which he used. He was deliberate to give a torch because he was very fond of it. But now he thought that it is a small torch and he used it sometimes. He at last gave the torch to him and set him there to wait for Korean ships rather than Japanese, and also set him to flash 2 lights if he needed something and 1 if he was fine in the horizon when the sun sets, because the torch will be seen in the dark. He also said him that there is a plenty of fish, and if he wanted he could eat them, but everything in raw, because a fire could have been seen. Now after the leavement of prisoner, the Sadav operated on the general and he didn't tell him anything because the general was suffering a lot and Sadav did not want to disturb. Sadav thought that the general could die, but after 12 hours of the operation, he demanded for food. Now Sadav, after in the 3rd visit, told that the prisoner had escaped. Now the general was very frightened. He told him that when he promised to kill the prisoner with the royal assassins, and the Sadav said that yes, he did. Now the prisoner said that made him a promise that he would give him a reward and told him not to disclose. Now he explained Sadav it was very rightful in his way to save the prisoner, but it was wrongful in the part of him to not send assassins because he was in his operation and could not remember what he had promised. Now, after he operated on the general and general knew the story, and after the prisoner left, and the general promised that nothing will happen to Sadav. Now, after thinking, after going on the whole part, now Sadav was convinced that Tom had left for America because no flashlight has been seen, and he has warned him to only search for Korean boats. Now, after he thought of the Americans he lived. He lived in America with great pain because the people of America were always hatred to the Japanese because of the war. The landlord in which he lived was often repulsive to him, but he also operated on her in her influenza. Now, he thought of all the faces of America, Dr. Professor Harley, and at last the prisoner, Tom. They all were angry, repulsive, and arrogant. Now he thought, why he could not kill them? Now, he was in between the basic rights of a doctor, basic duty of a doctor and basic duty of nationalist, in which the basic duty of the doctor were. This is the end of the story.